Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It's a live edition. It's game day, folks. It is Thursday. PodUp with Matthews in the morning, coming to you live from the International Diamond Center Studios. Fine jewelry, watches, much more. Family owned and operated with the largest selection of natural diamond jewelry. Today's program will have Brent Beaird, a college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter. We'll have SEC Network's Mike Morgan in the second portion. Lady Gators play tonight in the O'Connell Center. Tips at 6 against Texas Tech to try to advance to the Final Four of the WBIT. Softball goes down last night in Orlando against the UCF Lady Knights. I think it was 4-0, if I'm not mistaken. They travel to Auburn, I believe, this weekend. Baseball goes to Ole Miss, and it's opening day in Major League Baseball, believe it or not. Also, Gator football has their pro day starting this morning. Let's go to the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Tent. We're joined by our college football analyst, Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How you doing?
Great time of year, Shane, where we're getting down to brass tacks with the SEC being involved with the big dance, and still a little bit away from spring football games, or hopefully a few teams having spring football games. But other than that, doing okay. Since we last talked, I am proud to say that we have another grandchild in the family. Had a baby boy that was born last Thursday to my youngest daughter and her husband, and up in Atlanta. So everybody's doing well, so we're happy about that too.
Did they name him Bear Bryant, whatever? What's his name?
His name is Dean Connie Jones.
Okay.
And the Connie is from my daughter wanted to honor her mother, and her mother's name was Connie, and Connie's also can be a boy's name, so that's what they did.
Very cool. Well, congratulations. It's pretty cool, no question about it. All right, Brent, cranking up here. A lot of Gator fans, I've been doing this podcast for a little over 5 years, I think now, or right around 5.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when CBS carried they've been carrying it for years until this past year. But there were so many Gator fans that hated Gary Danielson for some reason. I thought he was an outstanding broadcaster, but he's retiring.
He is. People may have missed this. It was just announced late yesterday afternoon. Gary Danielson is leaving for retirement. He will go through the 2025 season. Look, I'm with you. I've always had a lot of respect for Danielson. He knows what he's talking about. He did an exceptional job and really understood the SEC. And I hate to see him go. He was with the SEC for years, along with Vernon Lundquist, obviously in his heyday. So he went this past season, obviously CBS and the Big Ten. So we had the change there. Charles Davis, who people may be familiar with, played football at Tennessee. He will replace Danielson in 2026, and Davis will do a good job. He's a good analyst too. But again, the thing that kind of overshadows all this, Shane, is CBS really blew it by dropping the SEC, and I still think they regret that, although then they will never admit it.
Yeah, I agree. There's no question about that. Brent, the SEC here in postseason play at this time has had a lot of success in all the different sports. The one thing I want to bring up, all 9 SEC gymnastics teams or national seeds. You know what? I didn't realize this until I saw it yesterday, and I think I'm correct about this. I want to say Florida is the number 3 overall seed, but they're having to travel to Tuscaloosa, who I don't know what Alabama is ranked. I don't understand. Do you have any idea why we have to travel being a higher ranked
No,
team?
no, I really don't. I don't know if that's luck of the draw or the way it's set up or what it is, but no, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It also doesn't make a lot of sense that that Florida has to go to San Francisco and play tonight instead of waiting and playing tomorrow night, since they played on Sunday. So there's still a lot of these championship events that I'm sure they do the best they can, but there are a lot of things that's pretty puzzling.
Yeah. Speaking of Maryland, we'll talk more with Mike Morgan about this, but there's a lot of talk about their coach, Kevin Willard, uh, taking the Villanova job. He missed out on a couple of meetings or press conferences or something, but he's getting blown up by the national media about this. So anyway, Brent, what's going on up in Alabama? Have they've started spring ball, correct?
Yes, they have. Their spring game will be on April the 12th, which is most of the teams in the SEC are going to be doing that. Ty Simpson, the quarterback, who may be the starting quarterback, has been voted to the leadership council. So if you're Shane, you can explain to us what a big deal that is, but I know the Alabama media believe it is, that he's on the leadership council. Not saying he's going to be the starting quarterback, but he has the most experience. So far, ESPN has done a top 25, and they did strengths and weaknesses of the top 25 teams. For Alabama, it's their defensive front, particularly with LT Overton. The weaknesses, which I think they just kind of were grasping for straws here, because I think they've got wide receiver depth, but their wide receivers I think are going to be very good. Jeremy Bernard is back, Ryan Williams is back, and they've also got a tight end, Josh Cuevas, who did a good job last year too. So spring practice doing okay in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, for sure. Arkansas, any news coming out of Fayetteville?
A couple of things. I give Trey Biddy credit for this. The secondary is beginning to take form. They've got 4 guys who they think are going to be ready to go. Larry Worth, Quintavia Scantret, Caleb Wooden, and Miguel Mitchell. Also at running back, they think they've got a couple of really good running backs in Braylon Russell, who we saw last year some in Mike Washington. A.J. Green is another guy, in Rodney Hill. So the Hogs should be able to run the ball. Taylor Green comes back, and maybe most importantly, Bobby Petrino comes back another year.
Yeah. Yeah. Andy says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law, I meant to bring this up. Men's swimming, Gator swimming had a disastrous disqualification in the medley relay. They are 11th after day 1 at the NCAAs. Yeah, I think they left early, I believe. One of the guys dove in the pool too early, I guess. Auburn Tigers, Hugh Freeze, what's the latest health? I mean, we know he was diagnosed. Was it prostate cancer?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Is he going through treatment? Have they really told us what's going on there?
No, they really haven't. I mean, I think at some point, probably toward the end of the spring, but we may get a little bit more about that. But because if it was out there, we would have seen it on Twitter by now. But I mean, I think they're dealing with it, and he is going through spring. I don't think he's even that limited at this point. But they said they called it early, which is always good to hear. Jackson Arnold is, we think, going to be the quarterback of Auburn. They've got some good wide receivers: Malcolm Simmons, Sam Turner, Cam Coleman. Matter of fact, Auburn just started spring practice this week. Some teams start a little later than others, and Auburn is one of those. Still, and again, as we mentioned a few weeks ago, Auburn starts the season going to Baylor on Friday night. So that will be an interesting game on Labor Day weekend.
What's going on in Gainesville?
ESPN had their thought about the Gators. Their strength would be the offensive line, bringing back 4 starters, including Jake Slaughter. And the weakness would be wide receiver depth. But I will say I think these receivers could be really good.
Mm-hmm.
Trey Wilson and UCLA transfer Jay Michael Sturdivant. Among those, Renell Brown, Dallas Wilson, Nashawn Montgomery. I tell you, Shane, if that group comes together, they could be really good by the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about. Yeah, they're going to be very young at that spot. I will say I think we will miss at some point. It may be early in the season, Chimdike and Badger being
Oh yeah,
gone
sure.
because they were so savvy. I think a lot of people just look at the 40 time and what these kids did in high school, which is all great. But those 2 guys that were here last year, the more and more I watched them, they just did things that are just you can't teach. Nobody teaches. They just have
Right.
that natural instinct of how to get open, how to body catch, how to shield off a defender. But I do like our wide receivers for sure. Gators, I think we mentioned this the other day. Peagler is coming back. He was here a few years ago. Georgia Bulldogs. Anything going on in Athens?
Yeah, there is, and some of it's not very good. They have had a couple players who are suspended indefinitely. Marquise Easley, an offensive lineman, wide receiver Nitro Tuggle. There were reports out yesterday that now this again is Easley crashed a car into an apartment complex. Tuggle was arrested on charges of speeding and reckless driving. I mean, there were reports out yesterday, Shane, that Tuggle was going 107 miles an hour. Look, at some point, and there have been a lot of bad articles about this week. I mean, you can bring speakers in, you can put these guys in treatment there and provide education. And I know Georgia's doing a lot of that, but at some point it really makes you wonder. And the theme of some of these op-ed articles this week about Georgia is the only way you're really going to get these kids' attention is to suspend them and kick them off the team. So, and they may be at the point at Georgia to where that's where they are. Kirby met with the media, Kirby Smart, on Tuesday. They are putting an emphasis on running the ball. They only averaged 124 yards per game last year running the ball, and also stopping the run. They'd like Nate Frazier is going to be their main running back. Bo Walker's a freshman at running back. They like him. If you remember Dylan Bell, he is coming back. He's a wide receiver. But they've also talked about using Dylan Bell as a running back. So, but the biggest problem at Georgia is the offensive line, which is rare to say, but they're either injured, coming back from injury, but that group did not play well last year. So that, as you can imagine, Shane, is a big deal during the spring to get that group up to speed.
The Pouncey twins, Mike and Marquise, invite you to try the mango martinis at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, handcrafted with their J.F. Hayden liqueurs. Try those flavors or find your favorite at shopjfhaydens.com. Got Brent Beaird here on the Titan Tomorrow Highline, courtesy of Comfort Town. All right, the LSU Tigers. I just was reading your note here. This dude has been playing college football forever.
Yeah.
I can't believe he's coming back again.
Yeah, well, who we're talking about is John Emery, the LSU running back. Now, Shane, here's we got a little bit of discrepancy here. John Emery put it on social media that he would be back at LSU for a 7th year. Well, Brian Kelly, the head coach, was asked about this, and his comment was, well, we haven't talked to John about this, and this first I've heard of it. We love John, but sometimes, things happen, and we don't know where that came from. Basically, what's happening is Kelly made it pretty clear that he may be having a seventh year, but he won't be having it at LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Caden Durham is their number one running back. Caleb Jackson is another guy. So with that said, Shane, I would imagine that may be a little bit of realism for. And look, Emory, when he came out of high school, was a five-star running back. He was a big deal, to say the least. So, but unfortunately, for various reasons, academic and in injury, it has not worked out at LSU.
No, it hasn't. What's going on with the Missouri Tigers?
Eli Drinkwitz is in the news, a Missouri coach. He basically said on the Paul Feinbaum show last week that this is his best team, and it's his best defense, which is interesting. I mean, they've been really good the last 2 years, double-digit wins. Brady Cook is no longer the quarterback. Bo Pribla, who transferred in from Penn State, they think is going to be the starting quarterback. Drew Pine, who we've seen before, and Sam Horn. Sam Horn was a real decorated quarterback. He's been injured, but he's back this year. I believe he also plays a little baseball. But a lot of that defense comes back, which would be interesting. Georgia transfer Damon Wilson is one of the guys that they'll be counting on. So Eli, who is never shy of confidence, Shane, says they're going to be very good.
Yeah, we had a couple of comments, I think, from Andy on Facebook, and had a couple of texts that came through on the Titan Mar text line regarding what possibilities of OU and Okie State playing their rivalry game in the spring.
Yeah, I'd love to see this, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Mike Gundy was talking to the media and suggested that, okay, why don't we revive the Oklahoma rivalry, and we could do it in the spring game. I think Gundy said, I think it's a great idea. We could do home and home with Oklahoma, charge $25 a head, and use it for NIL. So, look, we will. I know this has been talked about. You know, Dion brought this up, wanted to do the same thing with Syracuse, and they mentioned this. They've been in contact. Now, I think what's happened is, and we talked about this the other day. Fran Brown, who used to be at Georgia, now at Syracuse as head coach, and Dion are waiting on a decision from the NCAA. The NCAA would actually have to approve this of two teams playing each other. I'm curious what you think about this, Shane. I don't know if coaches would agree to it because of poaching or injuries or whatever, but I think the fans would love it, and I think they would get into it pretty quick. And again, we're not saying this is going to happen, but there is beginning to be a little more interest than what we thought in getting a competitive spring game.
Yeah, I like the idea of it. I'm with you. I don't know if coaches, a majority of them will go for it. My biggest, I don't say it's my concern, but I don't know who's going to pay for the travel of the opposing
good
team.
point.
I mean, let's say Syracuse goes and plays Colorado. Well, they got to charter a plane.
Sure.
You're looking at about 150 people on that plane. They got to stay in hotels. I don't know who's going to fork over that bill because, the regular season it's paid for, but I don't know about this. So we'll see what happens there. What's going on up at the Grove in Oxford?
Well, their strength this year will likely be, again, their defensive line. I think people have the wrong thought process sometimes of Lane Kiffin in that he will not run the ball and he doesn't like to play defense. Well, that's the exact opposite. He has really changed in his outlook. They've got one of the better defensive lines anywhere. Centurion Perkins comes back. LSU transferred Deshaun Womack. And Princewell U from Nebraska, they will be on the defensive line. Also, they've got to kind of rebuild their secondary. Pete Golding is in his third year now, coming from Alabama, is the D coordinator. They've always got talent at Ole Miss, but I think once they get the secondary down, that I think they'll be okay. But Austin Simmons is going to be the quarterback. Everybody thinks he's going to be good. And look, speaking of the defense, Shane, they had 52 sacks in 13 games last year. There are a lot of schools who'd love to have that stat.
Yep, for sure. The Vols, obviously they got this Nico kid back. They had issues at wide receiver last year. All those guys are gone, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
I'm not sold on the Tennessee Vols like most people.
yeah. Well, see, and the other problem really with Tennessee is that front seven last year was ferocious. They led the SEC in tackles for loss, and as Shane said, a lot of those guys are gone. Bryson Eason, Jackson Moy are back. Cornerback Jermon McCoy is back. So I mean, they do have, and also Boo Carter, who's been injured a lot. So they've got a lot of rebuilding, yes. And Nico is back at quarterback. They're hoping this is a year that he really steps up. Mike Matthews at wide receiver, he is hoping to help them. Chris Brazzell comes back. Braylon Staley comes back. Omari Jefferson, Alabama transfer, is coming back. So, Shane, they've got some young guys there, but a good point on your part. It's going to take some doing for this team to come together this year.
Yeah. The Longhorns obviously been in the playoffs the last 2 years. Lost a lot of players, but they're bringing Arch Manning will be the official starter now. But this is a team just loaded with talent.
It is. There's no denying that. And really, people get so caught up in their offense. Their defense is maybe their strength, frankly. Now, they do lose Jediah Barron and Andrew McCubba. They are gone. Colin Simmons, Trey Moore, their edge rushers, Anthony Hill, safety Michael Taffy. Those guys are coming back. So they're certainly happy about that. They're trying to rebuild their offensive line, and I have no doubt that they will. So, yeah, no doubt Texas will be back. And, again, we remember early in this season, a huge game, Texas goes to Ohio State. How about that one, Shane?
Yeah. All right. Any updates on our two rival guys, the Simmies and the Canes?
Yeah, a couple of position battles they're looking at wide receiver, Hakeem Williams, Jalen Brown, Elijah Moore, Javan Boggs. They're trying to get these positions in there. Remember, Squirrel White from Tennessee went to FSU, so he's probably going to be, again, a slot receiver. He's a pretty good receiver when he is healthy. They've got to figure out who their guard's going to be. Adrian Medley, Richie Leonard, TJ Ferguson, those guys are in the mix. At running back, Roydell Williams, who comes over from Alabama, and Kim Davis are two of their main running backs. So that's kind of what's going on with Florida State. Miami is a little further along in spring. They've got a good offensive line coming back. Some think it may be Mario Cristobal's best offensive line. Frankly, Inez Cooper come back on the offensive line. Mark Fletcher at running back. Jordan Lyle at running back. They've got to rebuild their secondary. Their secondary, frankly, was awful last year. Toward the end of the year, they did have 14 interceptions on the year. They're hoping to improve on that one. So you've got that going on too. So a little bit of look at the SEC and the ACC in spring ball.
Yeah, and a lot of people are talking about people don't want to risk injury in these games, like a spring game or whatever. The Gators have lost, if I remember correctly, 2 starters in spring scrimmages or
Yeah.
fall scrimmages against one another before the season even started. So there's always a risk of injury, but it is
Sure.
what it is. Brent, good stuff as always, my friend. We will talk to you next week.
Great. Look forward to it, bud. Take care.
That's Brent Beaird, our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter. Join us on the Titan More Hotline. Quick timeout. Come back. We'll talk a little hoops, maybe some NFL, maybe some baseball, a little bit of everything with our man Mike Morgan from the SEC Network. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning from the International Diamond Center Studios. We'll be right back.
Our premium sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union,
International Diamond Center,
Meldon Law, QC Kinetics, Dave & Buster's, UF Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute, JF Hayden Craft Liqueurs, Florida Cracker Kitchen, Los Linderos Tequila. Gridiron sponsors are Baker Sporting Goods, Comfort Temp, Electronics World, Florida Victorious, Gallo Car Wash, Miapa Latin Cafe, Peachland Dental, Quality Plumbing, Ruse Ogre State Farm, Silverback Concrete, 84 Lumber, Big Mills Cheesesteak, Celebrate Primary Care, Dowling Sign, Gator Bait Media, Gator Dominoes, Ironwood Golf Course, Okido America, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, UF Bookstores, Nest and Wow, MG&A Wealth Management. Watch and listen to us live on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. To become a sponsor, call my man Freddie at 352-284-3733.
I'm tired of you living in pain, and I want you to get real lasting relief from chronic pain in your knees, back, shoulders, and hips. QC Kinetics can get you moving again with cutting-edge regenerative treatments with no drugs, no downtime, and no surgery. Stop putting it off. Call now and schedule your free consultation. Call QC Kinetics now in Gainesville, Ocala, and the Villages. 352-400-4550. 352-400-4550.
Unleash the inferno.
Naysayers. Setbacks. Injuries. Life throws a lot of hurdles your way. The key is just keep jumping them.
Welcome back to the International Diamond Center Studios. There are many car washes in Gainesville, but only one Gallo Car Wash, locally owned by UF alum and the only car wash that provides NIL opportunities to Gator athletes, with locations on Northwest 13th Street and Southwest Williston Road, and coming soon to Jonesville. Back to the Titan More Hotline. This guy loves to wash his car with his shirt off down south. Our man Mike Morgan from the
Did you
SEC
buy the catalog,
Network.
Shane? It's available for all the ladies out there listening.
What's up, my man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm down here in West Palm Beach, sneaking in some beach time, and there's a cool place here called the Key Lime House. Technically, it's Lantana. That's right there on the Intercoastal, and that is where they show all the Gator games there. They'll have the other games on too, of course, but that's kind of like the Florida restaurant bar in that area. It's a really neat place. So I'll be watching the game there tonight. Looking forward to basketball coming back. All the talk about we don't have as many upsets as we have. That makes it bad. It also makes it great because the Sweet 16 has got no bad matchups at all. Like every matchup is must-see TV. All you got to do is look at Vegas to know that they're all competitive spreads, including the Florida-Maryland games. So I'm looking forward to a great next 4 days of basketball.
What can you tell us about the Terps? Obviously, we know they got a pretty good starting front five, not a deep team. You know, the Gators are extremely deep. I think it all is focused on the big man, Queen, right? You get him in foul trouble or run him where he's tired. I think the Gators can take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, and they're well coached. I mean, Kevin Willard comes from a family of coaches that are just exceptional in terms of what they've been able to do over time. It's still whenever Shane, whenever I hear Maryland, I think ACC. It's going to take me like 30
Right.
years
I
before
agree.
right before I think Maryland and Big Ten basketball. There's just something that's always going to be completely strange about that. But no, they're a physical team. Derek Queen is obviously the guy that makes it go. But they got five guys that all average double figures, so it's not by any means a one man band. They've got good guards in Gillespie and Rice. They're a physical team. Like they're not going to go into this game like a lot of teams against Florida and be overwhelmed by their size. But I still think Florida, just like every other matchup they're going to have before the Final Four, has a talent and depth advantage. And what it's going to take for Florida to lose, because I think Florida's, again, on a talent standpoint, should win a game like this. They just have to have a completely off shooting night and have some sloppy turnovers. I don't see any other way. I did say this last week, and I warned everybody, like, just because you're from the SEC doesn't mean you've got a ticket to the Final Four. There are a lot of those teams I thought would get bounced in the first round, and they did. But then there's a lot of teams that still have the ability to get to a Final Four. That's why we're sitting on 7 SEC teams, and Florida, of course, is one of them. Connecticut was that perfect second-round scare to remind you, and I'm talking about you as in the team, the players in that locker room, just because you won the SEC, that doesn't give you any distinct advantage going forward in terms of winning these games. Like Florida can lose. I've seen the most talented team in the field lose a lot of times in this event. So you don't have a guarantee of even getting to the Final Four, and they'll have to play well tonight to win this game as well.
Yeah, no question. Let's go back to the Connecticut game. Obviously, everybody was on pins and needles for that game, but you were playing the two-time defending champ, who's probably got the best basketball coach in America. Whether you like him or not, the way he acts, his team plays hard. They got great sets. They had guys open because we were switching and they just couldn't make shots, but we found a way to win. Our best player took over the game. I'm with you. Survive and advance.
Mm-hmm.
I just think, like you just said, if Florida makes their shots tonight, this game to me, they could run Maryland out of the gym. I really believe that because of the depth. But I think this game's going to come down, in my opinion, to our big men. How do our big men play? I didn't think our big men played very well against Connecticut. I thought they got pushed around. The physicality got to them. I think they got to step up tonight.
I totally agree. And you hit on a key point, Shane, and that is Maryland is not deep at all. Like their starters play almost the entire game. That's part of the reason why they got 5 guys that average double figures, because they all play a ton of minutes. So, Florida, what have we seen as their biggest advantage? They've worn teams down. They have worn with just a flurry of substitutions, and it's like their 2s are just as good sometimes as a lot of teams' 1s, sometimes even better. So the only thing that kind of neutralizes that in this scenario is that everybody has had 3-4 days to get fresh, right? If this were part of the second game or the fourth game where you just played a game 48 hours earlier, that's where really a bigger advantage goes to Florida. It's the first game of this 2-game set to get to the Final Four that you don't have the same type of advantage. Everybody should be fresh. Nobody should get tired. We're talking about, guys in their early 20s, and you've had 3-4 days to get your legs back under you. But yes, if Florida plays the game that they are capable of playing, this should be another victory. There's no question. Derek Queen has to go off for Maryland. Derek Queen has to go and just completely dominate the paint, and he's capable of doing that against a lot of teams. But when you can go ahead and throw Chinyelu, Condon, Hauk, and others just constantly just leaning on you, and you got 15 fouls between those 3 guys alone to offer up, I don't see that happening. I don't see Derek Queen putting up just this monster game where Florida doesn't know how to defend him.
Yeah, I think Chinny Lou, his physicality, I think he's our most physical big man. I think he needs
Yeah.
to really put his foot down early in the game and say, I'm a grown man. You're still a youngster. This is what's going to happen
which
tonight.
which he is. Chinyulu is I don't know. I don't know how many farms he grew up, but we used to use that expression. He's farm strong.
Yeah.
Like he is absolutely farm strong.
Tony says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law, a red hat with an M on it on the day we play Maryland. Come on, man.
Yeah, I didn't even put two and two together. This is a marina hat. I went to a boat show over the weekend, and they were giving these suckers away. I wanted to mix it up. The last week I had the blue visor. I can't wear that thing can't wear my Salt Life blue visor every segment. But yes, please excuse the Maryland red. Now, what's Maryland's other color? Is it
They're
orange?
black, red, and gold.
Black, red, and gold. Yeah. So there's no black. There's no gold. This is red and white. This is more like, I don't know, NC State colors or Stanford colors.
Chris from Mayaca on the Titan MR text line says, "Tell Mike go Redskins." I don't know what that means. And ask him to give us 8 winners today and tomorrow. I need some tips for my Hard Rock bets. Obviously, Chris isn't liking JC's picks, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I know JC just gives nothing but winners out. So, yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at all the point spreads out there. I think that I know that they're all close. Like I wrote down some of the SEC games. Like, for example, Ole Miss is getting 2.5 against Michigan State. I don't know, Shane. I kind of like Ole Miss there. I kind of like Ole Miss. Every other and Arkansas is a 5.5. At least these are early lines. 5.5 point underdog against Texas Tech. Don't be fooled by Texas Tech because you think, well, they're not a blue blood. Texas Tech is well coached. They're a good basketball team. Arkansas will have all they can handle in that game. They clearly put their best foot forward to win that bloodbath against Patino and St. John's. It was an ugly, ugly game, but Arkansas won it, and kudos to Cal for that. I don't know. I'm not big on picking games. I just know that I still have 3 SEC teams in the Final Four, Florida, Tennessee, and Auburn, and they're all favorites. Tennessee, Kentucky, that game is – I know for a lot of people it's like Tennessee, Kentucky, is that really a rivalry? It's huge. Huge rivalry. They absolutely hate one another. You got to go back to when Thompson Bowling Arena now seats about 18,000. Even when they weren't that good, it was the capacity was 24,000, and you'd have all these empty seats. We used to call it the airplane hangar. There's this humongous building, and it was like, why is it so big? Because when Kentucky increased the capacity for Rupp, Tennessee said we got to have more seats, so they're like, we're going to do another 500 seats more than Rupp Arena has. That's how back and forth they would go. Tennessee, Kentucky. It would go back to Adolph Rupp and Coach Mears, and it's a great, great rivalry. And Kentucky won both regular season matchups. So can they beat them 3 times, Shane? Can they beat Tennessee 3 times? I say no. I say Tennessee wins that game.
Yeah, I agree. It comes down to, like I always talk about, whoever makes the most shots. Now, Kentucky can score, boy. They got some premier shooters. And I think they're a different basketball team now that Butler, I don't know if he's 100% healthy, but he's at least on the court.
Yeah.
So
you know what Kentucky does? Kentucky and Florida, to me, and this is coaching, are 2 of the most enjoyable. If you're really a basketball fan, not just someone who gets into the sport when the bracket comes out, watch Kentucky under Mark Pope, and they don't have McDonald's All-Americans. He basically had to flip an entire roster. There's a lot of dudes out there for Kentucky that Cal would have never recruited. Mm-hmm. He would have never. It's like he's not our caliber player. Watch Kentucky and Florida. Watch guys moving without the ball. Watch the passing. Watch the execution. Like, it's not just 5 guys rolling out there and just, kind of freelancing and playing street ball. It is really organized movement, passing. To me, it's just a beauty to watch. As someone who loves the game, it's a beauty to watch those 2 teams because they're so well coached and how they space and how they pass, find open shots, don't take many bad shots. Clayton every now and then will take a heat check from the logo, but for the most part, I mean, they're really smooth and efficient the way they handle the basketball on the offensive end.
I agree. Brian's question for you on Facebook Live brought to you by Mel Law. Mike, do you think Maryland will be able to neutralize Walter Clayton? I think that's going to be their plan. If they can neutralize Clayton, who do you think will step up?
This is the thing about this Florida team. You pick your poison.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, you can go ahead and run some kind of junk defense on Clayton. And by that, I mean, and I don't think Maryland does a whole lot of this, but you could do some type of box and one, or you can do a matchup zone, which I'm surprised more teams don't do, and really key on Clayton. But it's not just him. Yeah. I mean, there's just so many other weapons. You know, it could be Elijah Martin's day. It could be Will Richards' day. Like, you can't. That's what makes Florida so hard to defend. Clayton now is getting all the attention. That's what being a first-team All-American gives you. But there have been plenty of games where Clayton has not been the best player that day for Florida. There have been plenty of games where other guys have led the way. So, yeah, they can do that, cut the head off the snake, so to speak. But I don't know if that's a winning strategy, because there's too many other players for Florida that can step up.
Rose Ogre State Farm offers a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visitogreinsurance.com. Give them a call, 352-240-1779. A few more minutes here with our man Mike Morgan from the SEC Network. Andy's question on Facebook Live brought to you by Mel Law. If you had a vote, who is the NCAA basketball coach of the year in your opinion?
Well, I do have a vote.
Oh.
I vote on the the Naismith for Player of the Year and Coach of the Year, and I have to check when my deadline is, because because just like the Heisman Trophy, man, I wait till the last possible second before I fill that out, because I want to make sure I get all the games in. Obviously, Todd Golden's going to be up there, you know, and if he leads this team to the Final Four, I think Todd Golden is going to get a lot of votes. Rick Pitino would have been my favorite, just end of regular season. The fact that he did what he did at St. John's, the fact that he's been able to do that at a half a dozen places everywhere he goes. Year two, he takes a program that was in the complete gutter and puts them into the NCAA tournament. But now that he got bounced early, I think that opens it up back up for a Todd Golden, for a Bruce Pearl. And is there anybody else that would really be in the running that's left? I don't think
John
so.
Shire, maybe.
Yeah, but he's got the best player in the country. Cooper Flagg is winning my vote for Player of the Year. That hay's already in the barn. I can with my two eyes, I've seen everybody there is up close in the SEC. And Janai Broom, with all due respect, Cooper Flagg's the best player in college basketball.
I agree.
So that one's easy. Coach of the Year is a little more difficult. And because Shire, it's not just Flagg. I mean, it's Knipple. Like they have a loaded roster. Yeah. So I don't think Shire really would be in my top three.
Yeah. Looking at one more question in basketball, you see any? I mean, like you said, there really can't be any like upsets because they're all major schools in the Sweet 16. But do you see anybody possibly an underdog winning tonight or tomorrow?
If I'm Alabama, BYU scares me a little bit.
Well, they can score.
Yeah. You know, if Bama has an off night shooting, BYU's one of the few teams that can keep up with them in the scoring column and make them pay. I think a lot of people hear BYU and they think just a bunch of scrappy, unathletic kids. No. BYU has a massive NIL budget. Somebody quoted me the figure like a month ago, and I don't want to say the wrong number. I'll just put it to you this way, Shane. Their NIL budget is more than a lot of SEC schools. Don't ask me where it comes from. I don't know.
The Mormon churches.
Well, yeah. I just know that they have a massive NIL figure, and they got some dudes now. It's not just a bunch of scrappy kids.
And what's crazy, correct me if I'm wrong, a bunch of those dudes are now playing at Kentucky as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, Mark Pope got a couple kids to transfer, but the recruiting class this year for BYU, they won, and they're still going. They've got next year, I think, is their bigger year in the recruiting cycle. If I'm not mistaken, are the Boozer brothers going there? Somebody can help.
They're not going to Duke?
Oh, you're right. No, they're going to Duke. They've got a big time player, and his name eludes me. They got a big time player coming. That was again an NIL. If you're going to get land that type of recruit, you're going to have to spend a lot of NIL money, particularly go to Provo. But yeah, they have the financial means, believe me, at BYU, and I think that is a dangerous team and a matchup that everybody, when they filled out their bracket, I'm sure had Alabama winning. I'm not saying Alabama won't win the game. I'm just saying that one could get interesting.
NFL draft is coming up, I guess, at the end of April, somewhere around there. I know you love the draft.
I do. I have a problem.
I'm just going to get just simple question because we don't have a whole lot of time, and we'll talk more in the next month or so about the draft. But right now, who do you think is the first quarterback that's going to be taken?
Cam Ward. There is no way Tennessee passes up. I think at the end of the regular season, a lot of people were throwing Shador's name out there, but the more you put those two under the microscope, it's not even close. Now, Shador might, because teams reach for quarterbacks, just like somebody is going to grab Jackson Dart. He might not have a first-round grade, but he's going first round because he's the third quarterback off the board. I don't think it's even close, even though Jalen Milroe ran a 4.3 something. That's great, but it doesn't help you if you can't complete a pass. It's going to be Cam Ward, who clearly showed the most arm talent. This is the thing about Shador. Because of his dad, a lot of people assume he's this great athlete. He's really not. He's not ultra fast. He's not one of these guys. He's not Lamar Jackson. Like some people think that he's out there running a 4.3 and is just going to shake and bake his way in the end. That's not him. He took a ton of sacks. Yes, I know Colorado had an awful offensive line, but a lot of those were holding onto the ball too long, Shane. As you know, that's a problem that some quarterbacks have to work on. And they like to blame, not they, but people like to blame everybody else. Sometimes it's the quarterback's fault for holding onto the ball too damn long. Yep. And the other thing is he's not nearly as elusive as people think. So if he's not that elusive, and Cam Ward clearly has better arm talent, that's why he's going number one. And I'm sure the Titans are thinking, from just people that I talked to in Nashville, and I happen to know some pretty good reporters over there. In the perfect world, this would have been last year's quarterback class with Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams, or next year's quarterback class with Arch Manning and all, but it's not. And the question is, can you take an Abdul Carter and yeah, he's probably your defensive rush in for the next 12 years and a perennial Pro Bowler, but you still don't have a quarterback, and you can't win in the NFL without a quarterback. So I don't think the Titans have the stones to just kick the can down the road, go with the best player, Abdul Carter, as opposed to their need, and they're going to have to just roll the dice on Cam Ward and take him number one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. All right, opening day is today. Who does Mike Morgan have winning the World Series?
Man, it's such a look. I'm in Braves country. I used to work for the Braves. I'd love to see the Braves get back there, but I can't go against a payroll that's nearly double the Braves. And the Braves spend $200 million. A lot of that money is deferred before somebody says, well, Mike, it's not actually $400 million. If you take Ohtani's salary and you take a lot of that money, they just deferred down the road, but they basically have double what the Braves have financially. So they have no weaknesses, and if they do have a weakness, they'll just plug it in with some insane deal. I got to go Dodgers to repeat. I do think Atlanta, I know you got a lot of Braves fans still. The Marlins are a train wreck organization. It's really hard to get excited about them. The Rays have to play in a triple A park. Poor people in Florida. All you're asking for is a legitimate baseball team in the Sunshine State. But the Braves, with Spencer Strider back healthy and Ronald Acuna back healthy, and that's both going to happen sooner rather than later, they'll be back. Like, they'll be a force again. I just don't know if they're Dodger good, but I know they got a good chance to win that division against the Mets and Phillies and at least be in the running for it.
Last question. Mike wants to know, what does ESPN canceling their MLB contract at the end of 2025 say about the future of baseball?
Wow, great question. Um,
Maybe you can't answer it.
no, no, no. I mean, I think it. I think what has happened is this is a short answer to a long answered question. Years ago, Fox was all in on baseball. ESPN was all in on the NBA and stayed in on all in on the NBA. And it's hard to spend over $500 million a year for essentially one game a week, which is Sunday Night Baseball, which ratings wise does not deliver. It's not a ratings grabber. So people much higher than me, of course, above my pay grade, say that baseball could still wind up with ESPN. But if you're going to spend that kind of money, the problem that Major League Baseball has is that, for example, in Braves country, the Braves do extremely well in the local ratings, Shane, the local, right? Braves fans, it's like you're conditioned 7:35, let's turn on the Braves. I'm going to watch my team play, and they do very, very well. The problem is on a Sunday night, if you're in Braves country or if you're in Florida and they run the Detroit Tigers against the Angels, you're not watching. You don't care. It's not like the NFL where you'll watch any game because you give a crap. Even Thursday night, it's not great football, but people are watching. The ratings are insane. But in Major League Baseball, a game of the week does not draw numbers. So, yeah, I think from that standpoint, baseball has a problem on its hands, and Rob Manfred is a clown. And so he's not the guy to fix it. It's not well led. There's a lot of things about MLB that are messy.
I'm laughing at Barone here on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. It just brings back memories of my young childhood days. He says, just give me the Braves on TBS Superstation at 6:05 start time, like wrestling in the Amish.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Get a little Gordon Sully
Yep.
late at
Gary the
night.
King Lawler.
Yeah. Dusty Rhodes, The American Dream. Put a B movie on, run over the top as you put your head on the pillow and watch the Braves. And that's the thing. I mean, I don't know how this generation, Shane, but spending most of my life in Florida and a lot of it in Gainesville, that's always going to be Braves country to me.
Absolutely.
And the fans there are still love their Atlanta Braves and still love watching them. So, with all due respect to the Florida Miami Marlins, which is the worst organization perhaps in professional sports, you want to talk about a clown show? Good Lord! I hopefully most of the people there still have a team to root for, like the Braves.
Okay, we got 2 minutes.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen with the Rays?
With the ballpark, or just in?
I mean, because I know there's talks about Orlando trying to get them, and I don't know where they have to build a stadium, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just a mess, right? The whole
It's a complete mess. Yeah. They never solved. It all starts with the ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
The ballpark for a baseball team may be the most important thing. Football team, you don't have to. I've been almost every NFL stadium to call games. You don't have to have the best stadium for people to want to come out and support the team. Basketball, a gym is a gym. But with baseball, you've got to have a ballpark that people really enjoy going to. The Trop has been anything but that. And then you kind of dangle the bait for the fans. Like, oh, no, we're going to get this new. No, okay, maybe not. So I don't know. There's been rumors that team's going to move a dozen different times. I don't see Orlando as a viable option, Shane. I don't. I don't know why, but I'm just not feeling it. I think if they ever did leave, they probably would leave the state. But I hope that's not the case. I like Tampa having a team. There are some people there that are great fans, but they certainly deserve better.
Yeah. Mike, let everybody know how they can listen to your podcast.
Yeah, JC and Morgan. We'll have Tom Luganbill on later on this week. We've had everybody from West Durham recently to Wetzel to Barnhart, just talking college ball all off season long. A lot of things to talk about. One of the things we got into last week with Wes is what the hell is going on with the ACC. I mean, it's not bad enough that they've only got one team left in the basketball tournament. They were awful in the bowl games. Florida State and Clemson finally stopped suing their own conference, but they're now getting a sweetheart deal where they're going to get most of the money. Well, what does that mean for a Wake Forest? Why am I going to stay in this league when you're taking all the money and giving it to two programs? So we delve into that. But you can catch JC and Morgan on every platform: Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, Google Play, and iTunes. And just like this, it's presented in part by the great folks of MG&A Wealth, mgawealth.com, located in South Florida. Call Sean today. Great financial move for you and your family.
Yeah. Well, buddy, enjoy the game tonight. Hopefully the Gators win this thing, and we'll talk to you next week.